Hello and welcome to Craft World. Today I've got a magazine for you to show you, a new magazine. This has just launched this week. You can purchase this over on CraftStash. It will hopefully soon be in your local newsagents too. But this one is Die Cutting Essentials. This is actually issue 102, I believe. Yep, 102. And it's got this beautiful sunflower die set on it. Now I'm going to create something with this die set. It's a little bit different to that I can see anything else that's in the magazine using it. The beauty of this die is that half of the die cuts around the edge, but the other half doesn't. That remains within the cardstock. So where we've got some beautiful cards like this one, where you've got the panel remaining as the panel and then the outside cut, I'm thinking, well, actually that would make a beautiful gatefold. And as we have this piece at the top that sort of is a little bit wider, I'm thinking one gatefold this way and then the other one that way, so they kind of interlink or overlap each other. So we'll see how that works. I haven't tried it out yet, so let's test it all together. Obviously in the magazine you do have lots of other inspiration as well, lots of projects using that particular die and lots of other projects as well. Things like expert advice from Phil Martin, which is fantastic. Different techniques as well. So you've got perfect die cut swing cards in there. Lots and lots to get to grips with and get crafting with this month. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a piece of white cardstock, and I'm actually going to need to create my own card base for this one because it's going to be an unusual size. So I need to measure roughly what size my card needs to be. First of all, the height. So let's start by putting the bottom, not the bottom of the die, but the bottom of the cutting edge to my cardstock, and then the top of the cutting edge, that's this bit here. So not the die, that's a few millimeters more, but just the cutting edge, and just making a mark on my paper. I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and as you always know, I use the Creative Craft Products trimmer. I'm going to trim the height of my card using that little mark I've made, and just, there we go, just popping that under the runner, so I've now got my card height. So that was easy enough. Then what I want to do is work out the next part. So this is going to be a little more difficult because I actually want the gates that fold inwards to be a little wider than half the card base underneath, because I want them to overlap slightly. So I think the actual gates I'm going to make this width, or just slightly wider, this width here, ignoring that because that can overlap. So if I just measure, I've got my mat here, I've actually got it upside down, so I need to measure at the top here. So I'm just going to measure that width, which is 6 centimeters roughly. So I'll add on another centimeter, so we've got some solid cardstock here as well. I'm actually at 2, so let's just see if we can we do 8 centimeters, and then we'd need 16 centimeters. Yeah, we wouldn't quite get another 8, so we'll need to do 6. Should we do 7? Then another 2 7s would take us to 21, and then another 1 7 would take us to 28. So we need 4 7s. Okay, if we make this 7 centimeters wide, I think. But then I'm going to need a bit more. See, no, it's going to be, in fact, it's going to need to be a longer piece of cardstock than this, I'm sure. Just check my measurements again. So even if I did it the entire width of the die, yeah, it needs to be the 8. So what I'm going to have to do here instead is make the gates and the base in 2 halves. Now this is what I like about doing this video with you, is I can explain the process, how I'm working things out, and then hopefully at home you'll be able to do the same too. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to cut my 2 gates. I'm going to then cut the gates away and then work out my base afterwards. So I'm going to place my die. So this is the edge that won't cut into the cardstock. So I'm going to place that on my mat, just using the guidelines. We need a 1 centimetre for a tab, so maybe about, we can do it a bit longer. We can do 2 centimetres there from the edge of the card. So I've got 1 centimetre there will be my tab, then I've got 2 centimetre gap, and then I've got my die. So putting that on straight, the die itself, the actual outer metal of the die, is slightly overlapping the top and bottom. I knew that would happen because the cutting edge is inside of that, and I don't know if you remember me saying when I was measuring it that I'm not measuring to the edge of the die, I'm measuring to the cutting edge. So just pop this down with a little bit of low tack tape, and I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine, and then I'm going to repeat the same on the other side, but it doesn't matter which way up it is because we're going to be cutting these gates out afterwards. There we go. So I have my 2 pieces cut. I'm going to add in my score lines now so you can see how this is going. I'm going to do a 1 centimetre score line on the straight edge of each of these, and that's going to fold round my card base. Do the same on this side. So I've got 1 centimetre guidelines on my trimmer, and again just fold that round. Now I think what I'm going to do actually is create the card base. You see it does need to be quite wide, doesn't it? So you can just overlap and link those florals. I'm going to do it from a nice yellow. So let's see, I'm just looking in my cardstock base, but I've got this lovely deep yellow. I think rather than a bright yellow, I think a deep yellow might actually add a bit more of contrast there. So if I just pop this around here, first of all, I will need to back this eventually. I'll need to put a stronger cardstock on the reverse of it just to back it, but I think I might do that in white cardstock, make it stronger just because it is going to be the part of the card base. Now I'm just marking there, that's going to be the height of my card, and I'm just thinking about a suitable amount to overlap these without just a tiny little bit. That's all we want to do, is a tiny little bit of overlapping. This would make a beautiful stencil. So about there would be about great. So I tend to mark with my pokey tool where I can, if I can still see the lines, because that way I don't have to worry about any pencil lines. So I've got my line there and I've got my line there. I might be able to see it actually better on the smooth side, but let's cut this. So this one here is for the height. So put that away, and then this one here is the width. Put that away, like so. So now these should sit nicely around there. So I'm just going to apply, you can use tape, but I'm going to use a wet glue just along these lines. Now actually, before I do this, I think I might take a piece of white cardstock and cut that base now while I've got this to use as a guideline. So I can just pop this on here. Again, use my pokey tool and just mark myself where I'd like that cut line to be. And then I've got my back panel already measured out and cut for me. So place that in there. And this is going to go on the back over those tabs that we're about to do, and it will just cover everything up nicely. So pop that to the side for now. Let's use a wet glue. Just apply a line of glue along the inside of the tab. And place this down on top. So you'll need to make yourself an envelope that suits the size of the card that you've made. So as I say, the height here, let's come back to my upside down mat and just measure, oh, let me see. There. So the height is almost 12 centimetres, okay. So you'll need a 12 centimetre or slightly longer, 13 centimetre high envelope. And then the width really is entirely up to you, because as you saw, you can adjust the width if you wish. Now I'm turning this one upside down. I'm placing it on this side. Hold that over. And we've got that ever so slight overlap, so we could just tuck those into each other if we wanted to. There we go. Now on the reverse, as you can see, this is why I cut my piece of cardstock before. This is just going to hide these tabs. It's going to strengthen that yellow cardstock too. So everything's nice and neat and strong. Lots of glue on the back to hold everything in. I say lots of glue, it's spread around lots, but it's actually a thin line of glue everywhere. And just making sure that from both sides you're not going to see any white edges, And if you do, you'll need to trim those away. Lovely. Beautiful. I'm really liking that. That's actually, so far, it's a really simple card. Now, what I think I'm going to do is, because this is like a gatefold now, and I don't really want to add any colour to these, actually. You could paper piece behind those if you wanted to. You could add some inking, some solid paper behind it, some solid cardstock to make gatefolds. But I really love this lacy peek through. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself some ribbon or some twine, something similar, and I'm going to wrap that around this card so that can hold it together rather than me adding any strength in this beautiful sort of really intricate lacy look here. I like that it looks delicate, and I'd like to keep it that way. In fact, that is really stunning, just like that. So let me go and find some ribbon and then we'll come back. So I've found some ribbon, and I've gone for this green gingham ribbon, and I've also discovered that, I knew this anyway, but I didn't think to do it before, and you do get some downloadables in with the magazine as well, and this is just one of the sheets that you can download. It's absolutely beautiful. So this is the toppers. You also get the backing papers as well. I've just printed this off. I'll do the toppers the backing papers another time for other projects. And I've just cut away the largest of the sentiments there. You are my sunshine. And I just think that is not only, it's going to tie in with the green beautifully, but it just adds a little splash of colour because I'm trying to keep the outside here white. It will tie in that white as well. But it just means that's where the main part of our colour will be. So a little bit of sunshine in the middle of the card there. So I'm actually going to bring this up towards the top of the card, I think, because then my ribbon, my gingham ribbon, is going to wrap around towards the bottom there. So the focus here will be there. So with this, it's a good idea to secure your ribbon all the way across the back of your card first of all. So work out your length. So it's going to want to come to the center, and then there'll be enough for you to tie a bow. I've probably got a bit too much there, but I'll trim this off. I'll trim a nice amount off. I might have a little bit of excess that I'll need to trim later. So once you've got that, there we go, then you can apply either some tape or some wet glue, either will work, just along the back here, the part that's going to be on the back of the card. It's a good idea to measure that. I just made a note of it by the marks on my mat. Might be a little bit longer there. Oh, going to come down a bit lower actually. So again, line that up nice and straight. And then if you line your card up straight as well, a little bit lower, so about there. Yeah. That means your ribbon will be nice and straight. Bring that round so any excess glue will fold round to the front. There we go. So just giving that a few minutes to dry. Fabric on cardstock takes a bit longer. The glue takes longer to dry than if you were to use, say, a tape, but I think it would last longer. So just pressing that down. I'm just going to tie this, ensuring that my sunflowers where I want them to sit. Like I say, nice and interlocking there. Tie myself a little bow on the front. I can neaten the bow up afterwards. Essentially, I'm just going to get a nice tight bow on there. Make sure I pull the right ends to make that tighter. And then I can go in and I can start playing with the length of the ears and the tail of the bow. Trim that down to where I need it as well. There we go. Nice sharp scissors for this. I'm not using my fabric scissors, which I really should be. But there we go. Still worked all the same. Just take my bone folder and strengthen these creases, which I didn't do originally. There we go. I think that is really lovely. I really like that. I love that we've now got this so we can open it up and we can see the sentiment inside. If I just bow that, you can see that in there. I don't want to undo that bow again because I've just done it up. But like I say, you can keep playing with the bow. Now it's tight. That's where you can fiddle with it and make it perfect. But that's really pretty. Just make yourself an envelope or find an envelope that fits and send that to a recipient. So that's all using the items that come with Die Cutting Essentials issue 102. As I say, available on CraftStash now, but also available now in the shops.